with Michael, Carol the First. It shows Michael and Carol, Codreanu with Carol, instead of who was actually in power, which was Antonescu. So it's dishonest from the get go because Antonescu and Codreanu didn't like each other. They were at odds with each other, and Hemia Simon didn't like him, didn't like the successor to Codreanu wasn't in power either.
Well, Antonescu wasn't part of the Iron Guard either.
No, he really wasn't. Simon was correct when he called him a dick.
I mean, well, I've heard it from a Romanian who, well, that doesn't matter. I guess my issue with the thumbnail is that in Codreanu's writings, he never once besmirched the king or advocated for like his taking power over the king. So,
He also
like in
never
the
called
example of
it. He also never called himself a fascist. I mean, before we start this, let me just switch over to something else. That's very important.
well, he
Um,
called himself a national socialist.
no, but in
So I
any like,
mean, you know,
look, hold on, let me just.
no, but yeah, like Codreanu, he was always very supportive of the monarchy and upheld the monarchy as like worth defending. I mean, he describes himself as a monarchist. The case with Mussolini was that he
Fascism.
was told to step down by King Victor Emmanuel, and Mussolini did flee to the north and he formed the Italian Social Republic. But
Yeah.
again, that's more due to the extended seas of war. And he was I don't support him in doing that. In a way, that was almost a betrayal of the fascist principles he was espousing. But it was either that or basically, like, be killed or be given to the Allies as so Mussolini's situation is a little more nuanced per se, but I do think he did kind of the power of Victor
Yeah.
Emmanuel.
Well. Yeah. I mean, hold on. I was just, and I really should figure out how to. Okay. We just switch that. No, I wasn't. I just. I really suck at using. Maybe the Zoomers have it correct with the whole Discord. Now here, but Mussolini lived in Romania. That's one of the mentions of fascism. Fascism. If people can see that, there you go. There's one of the mentions. That's the only. There's only four mentions of fascism in Former Leeches. This when he's referring to talking about Mussolini. This, which again he's also talking about Mussolini. This when he's discussing something related again Mussolini. This and where again the black shirts again Mussolini dictatorship etc. There's never a single instance in his most important writing where Codreanu ever called himself a fascist. He never refers to himself as a fascist ever in For My Legionaries. He refers to of fascism and talks about fascism, but he never particularly refers to fascism as a doctrine of something he actually agrees with. He always calls himself a monarchist.
Well,
It's
and I think in this case, it's like fascism was Italy's thing, so no one really wanted to that was seen as like Italy's kind of thing, right? Codreanu, he had his own movement. The Germans had their own movement. They were all kind of seen as like distinct per se. It's only in kind of the modern era where all those sort of authoritarian governments kind of get lumped together and defined as fascism.
but fascism is not really particularly a right wing form of government. It's a synchronous form of government similar to distributism or libertarianism. It's neither left nor right.
I mean, I have a very specific definition of fascism if you want to hear it.
Fine, give me a definition.
Like, I see fascism more as a political technology than an ideology in of itself. As the stream still on? The stream has ended.
No, that I just ended this screen sharing.
Oh, okay. So with so with fascism, it's like it's sort of like the body politics immune system acting up against a threat or some kind of danger, right? So in fascism, you saw like Mussolini, and he was able to mobilize like the nation and bring it together under himself for the threats they were facing. You see the same thing in Germany, explicitly with the threat of communism in Bavaria, but also from the Soviet Union as well. They needed to militarize and solidify themselves. You see with Franco too as well, with their own communist revolution that they were fighting against. Like they for a time were fascistic and had to be fascist to push back against this threat. But then once the threat was ameliorated, they kind of returned back to normal operating procedures. So, like to say fascism is like this sort of ideology, I think is errant. I mean, you can argue that if your nation
Right.
or state's going through a particularly poor time or facing kind of these sort of threats, then yes, like maybe a fascist period is needed or something to kind of right the ship. But once the ship is righted, fascism is pointless. It burns itself out. It doesn't really like have a reason to exist.
Yeah. Uh.
Like the Soviet Union, right? You could argue that in like the 40s, right, when the war was declared on them, that they had to embrace certain tenets, sorry, of fascism, because like, look, no one wanted to fight and die for class solidarity or the international revolution. So you had Stalin. He brought the church back to one degree or another, and he kind of pushed Russian nationalism because most people in the Soviet Union don't want to fight for Stalin. So he had to kind of go back to these older forms of identity and ideology to kind of motivate his people to actually serve him in this way. And then once the war was over and the Soviets were victorious, they returned to form. They went back to their atrocities they were committing. They went back to persecuting the church and destroying nationality. So yeah. So again, I think fascism is more of like a tool, not really ideology in of itself.
Yeah. Now I realize that I had way too many tabs open, and if people see some of the me and Nation's DMs, there was nothing spicy. It wasn't like the 4-page argument we had like 2 years ago, which is a hilarious argument. I forget what that argument even was about.
Yeah, no, I have no idea.
It was something to do with me and you arguing about pro-Russia versus anti-Russia. It was really stupid. It's a really stupid argument.
Hmm.
And
So we gonna watch this thing, or
yeah. Sorry,
we'll see.
random.
We'll see how much of it we can tolerate, and then
Ideologies like fascism, I started to wonder whether these two systems truly work together. Now, I do admit, there have indeed been instances where fascism and monarchism found themselves seemingly aligned.
I just find it funny that Levato says monarchism like Marxism.
Yeah,
That's
no, I thought I heard Marxism too there for a second.
yeah. Levato,
Oh,
you want to admit
what is
you
he?
Levato,
Is he a turd?
we've talked. No, Levato's from. He is a. I've talked to him. Like we had those 2 interviews we have had with him. It's actually they're the first 2 interviews I ever did. But they were. He's. I think he's Bulgarian. He's a Bulgarian Muslim living in Berlin.
Okay, jeez.
So everybody from the Balkans, everyone talking about how great every Balkan stereotype made into a person.
Like a Bulgarian Muslim. Jeez, that's interesting.
During the turbulent early 20th century, the interplay between these systems fostered temporary alliances in countries such as Mussolini's Italy and Corneliu Codreanu's Iron Guard in Romania. Fascist leaders, with their strong authoritarian leanings, often found solace in the traditional hierarchical structure offered by monarchism. But upon closer examination,
Yeah, the monarchists were never particularly aligned with the black shirts, really. I mean, it was more of an isle. It was more that just if you actually want to look at it, Mussolini was bluffing the whole time with the March on Rome. He didn't even. None of the men were armed. They actually looked like dog shit. It was literally one general, I forget his name, who just said Mussolini did was actually hiding out, hiding out. Wasn't even leading from the front. He's just like it was more like "fuck it, we ball, we're doing it." It wasn't even planned. It was just a spur of the moment thing. He's like "fuck it, we ball."
Man, but it still worked though. The bluff worked. That's
It
all that matters, really.
it did, but El Duce never was particularly aligned with monarchism. He was always more aligned with the futurists, the more radical non-international socialists, and at one point the Soviet Union. Codreanu also, as we've discussed earlier, never called himself a fascist. Ever.
Well, again, that would, to call yourself a fascist would be like it'd be like a Canadian saying, "Wait, I'm a Democrat," in terms of like political ideology. Like, it just wouldn't kind of make sense at the time. You wouldn't like call yourself, these kinds of things, because fascism was Italy's thing. Unless you weren't in it, like if you weren't Italian, you wouldn't use that term to describe yourself.
I mean, to be fair, look, Mussolini was peak Italian, especially when you see how much the man gesticulates in all of his speeches,
No, right, yeah.
especially this one famous speech which is irrelevant to what we're currently discussing, but where he literally spins his hand around like a helicopter, complaining about Italian stereotypes. Like, yeah, complaining about Italian stereotypes when demonstrating to be the largest Italian stereotype who ever lived.
I mean, but hey, who else would you want to rule you other than like, El Duce with his, he really embodies the nation. It's just kind of nice to see, I guess.
What a short, balding 40-year-old childless man. Oh no, he wasn't childless. Sorry, yeah, he was married.
No, he's got lots of kids actually.
You're actually,
I mean, isn't his like granddaughter or great granddaughter like in the Italian Parliament?
Oh yeah, she's cute.
Yeah.
She's actually very attractive, and his other great granddaughter had a pretty successful career singing Japanese city pop.
I mean, hey, it's just cool. Like, imagine having that in your resume. Oh yeah, no, I'm like the great granddaughter of El Duce. That'd be cool.
Well, Codreanu was married before he had kids, so.
No, I know.
Sadly, we can't set. And all of Rockwell's kids turned into race mixing degenerates. And Pierce's kid is a shit lib. We have an issue with that on the modern right, is people's kids turning into idiots.
I mean, the problem with Pierce was that he was fairly
he was a terrible father.
Atheistic.
Yeah, but this isn't about Pierce.
Especially if you look at these two systems from their ideological groundworks, their compatibility would soon begin to slowly unravel. Fascism, with its emphasis on the supremacy of the nation and the absolute power of the state, clashes with the traditional values and limited powers traditionally associated with monarchy.
In whose mind does the state not have absolute power in monarchy? That is completely at odds.
You see, I think what he's getting at, he's trying to say like, oh well, it's like the limited power. He's saying in terms of like a democratic or constitutional monarchy, where the monarch is essentially a figurehead. That seems to be what he's implying, right? So, like, do you see that or no?
No, Levator is a semi-constitutional.
Okay, see, I'm like I'm an absolute monarchist, right?
I thought you.
I believe.
No wait. Hopper was there when we interviewed.
Anyway, so like I essentially believe the monarch should be sovereign, right? And then from that standpoint, you could argue that, well, fascism and monarchy would be incompatible, because if you have two people vying to be sovereign, only one can eventually win out, and one has to be subordinated to the other. I mean, I like what Avola said about Hitler, where he said that, well, Hitler should have been the Bismarck to Germany's Kaiser. Like, Hitler shouldn't have been, a ruler per se. I think it's the same thing of Mussolini too, as well. Mussolini should have been, maybe I'm confusing the quote, but like Mussolini should have been the Bismarck to Victor Emmanuel, and the fact that he tried to supersede him in certain policy respects is what kind of led to his downfall. But
that losing World War II.
Well, I mean, Italy was not in a position to fight World War II, really. Like,
the
Italians.
The Italians did pretty well in some theaters of the war.
What name a single theater that Germany didn't have to bail them out of?
They invented modern frogman and underwater demolition tactics.
But I mean, that's not enough to win. But that's neither here nor there.
They committed they are responsible for the last successful cavalry charge in history on the Eastern Front.
I mean, good for them on that, I guess. But I mean,
look, the Soviets got themselves pushed back by a bunch of Italians on horses. One of which the commanding officer
That's
shot.
more of a testament to how bad the Soviets were than
But
how good
look,
the
the
Italians
commanding
were.
officer shot his own horse in the head accidentally while charging into the Soviet lines. That's how
Wait, the
impact.
Italian?
Yeah, yeah. He got too excited. He actually discharged his revolver through the face of his horse.
Mamma mia!
Like,
Oh boy.
but no, he
Yeah,
survived. He survived that
you're
engagement.
not making
He
you're not
survived
making the
the
Italians
engagement,
sound
and
good.
the horse, kept fighting until horses will keep running until until they realize that, oh, I'm dead. It's a one animal that would do that.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Anyways, but that's one point I kind of see with his position. So if he's advocating for like yeah, I mean if you have a constitutional monarchy, then essentially
you don't have a
the
monarchy.
parliament no the parliament dictates power anyway. So then the king should be subordinated to the fascist dictator because that's just how the systems like operate, like how it works. So anyways, you can continue.
While it may have appeared as a harmonious coexistence at times, the inherent contradictions between fascism and monarchism became evident when put to the test. Moreover, as the world transitioned into the aftermath of World War II and the rise of democratic principles, fascism faced global condemnation for the atrocities committed under its rule. Monarchies, on the other hand, embraced the values of constitutional democracy, unfortunately adapting to relinquish much of their power and adopting a more symbolic role in governance. So today, this begs the question, are monarchism and fascism truly compatible from an ideological standpoint? By
Pause
examining
it.
the ideological groundworks.
So he's speaking about today then.
Yeah, but even when they were still in power, they didn't actually give up any power. Queen Elizabeth II still had just as much power as they don't. They just don't use it. This is actually a myth. Like, they didn't actually give up most of the power. Most of the power is still there. They just don't use it. Like, none of the laws really changed.
But I mean, to have power and not use it is essentially the same thing as not having power. And forever, whatever kind of extenuating circumstances, the monarch feels are unable to use that power. I mean,
I mean, the only
I don't
reason
know. At the end of the day,
why would why would
the
why would we care about atrocities? I don't like generally care about atrocities. There's plenty of mass. The issue with literally liberal democracies, they do the same thing. No. It has nothing to do with them. They don't believe in it. They starved nearly 2 million Germans to death. They ethnically cleansed, attempted. They failed at a lot of it. Ethnically cleansed, hundreds of, well, a few 10 million Germans from different ethnic groups who've lived in other parts of Europe. The firebombing of Dresden, the Holodomor, which happened before that, the rape of Berlin, the mass murder of Polish civilians by the Red Army, the mass murder of
it's because power will trump ideology every time,
yeah. I mean,
right? And in times of war, you're gonna do whatever you feel is needful.
well, the point is, it doesn't matter. The modern Democrat will lie about what they did during World War II. We
Well,
committed
it's because
we
war
won.
is a pre-modern no, but war is like a pre-modern like fact of human existence, right? You might try to justify it with liberal principles and this and that, but when like the rubber hits the road, it's this sort of like primordial, eternal kind of thing, right? And that's when kind of all these nascent aspects of our nature come out, right? And when you're in a war, you do practically anything to win. You know, you can't democratize war. You can't apply socialistic principles to war. When it comes to war, it's the most right wing thing imaginable because it's literally a Darwinian struggle for life and death. So, I'm not saying that war is good or that you have to like it, obviously, because I'm not really a fan of war myself. But
Uh,
like again, at the end of the day, I know war has utility, but I'm not gonna like say I desire war. Anyways, like I know it can lead to some positive developments, but even still, I would question the value of those developments, especially when there's so much lost in war. I mean, look at the First World War, for example. You know, people might try to claim, oh no, we saved the world from the Kaiser and this and that, but I mean, the cost was not worth it, obviously, especially as a monarchist.
But we did it again.
I know.
It's
I know.
yeah. I mean, there's this weird idea in monarchist circles where people are too ashamed. Like, besides the aristocratic utensil, he doesn't care, and I don't either, which is the one thing we agree on. But besides geopolitics, geopolitics have come to the realization of after interacting with Eastern Europeans online, I'm like, God damn, I find you people annoying. There's like I used to be a lot more pro Ukraine, but the more I had to interact with both sides of that conflict, it's like, you both of you just kill each other. I'm gonna laugh at you. You can kill each other. Like, you people are literally just making shit up in your history. Eastern Europe.
Of fascism and monarchism, I have come to the conclusion that these two systems, despite having coexisted at some points in history, are largely opposed to one another, and in this video I will be showing why.
Pause it for a second.
Yeah.
If I wanted to, I could make a stinking video saying, "Oh yeah, no, it turns out that monarchy and democracy can't coexist, and here's a list of all these constitutional monarchies and why they don't work." Like, you do the exact same thing. I mean, ultimately, what he's trying to say is that, like, he's trying to say that power does not broach any competition, which is true. You can't divide power. There has to be only a single sovereign, be that in the form of like a parliament or in the form of like a monarch. It doesn't matter if you have a fascistic dictator and a king, or you have an elected prime minister, president, and a king. It's always going to matter. Like, at some point, the buck is going to stop with someone, and whoever takes responsibility is the one who is sovereign, right? Mussolini, he was tortured and killed, right, for his things, and then Victor Emmanuel got off scot-free. Now, mind you, they voted the monarchy out of existence, but in terms of who actually had power in that situation, it was Mussolini. So, I mean, if that's all he's going to try, like, I think he's trying to make this like big ideological thing where, oh well, you should be a democratic monarch because it works really well or whatever. But like, at the end of the day, like, there's only going to be one sovereign institution.
The issue with people like Levada and really monarchists in general is that the only really true form of monarchism is absolutism or semi-absolutism.
Sure.
The parliament should always be told, yeah, piss off. Should also be able to be told to piss off, because the parliament will always side with the moneyed elite, and the monarch is always at war with the international banker class or capitalist class or the merchant class, because the monarch doesn't derive his power from the merchant class. He derives his power directly from his subjects.
I mean, the ruin of many a monarchy has been because you see the monarch kind of going into bed with the moneyed class. I mean, that's kind of like Poland's history, for example. I mean, the point is, though, right?
No,
second a monarch
No,
places
I'm going to
himself.
push back on the whole Poland thing. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Now, I spend too much time on Canadians. I just apologize now. Like, I should be an American and not apologize at all. But Poland's issue, and the reason Poland has always found itself at the back foot of Russia, is because Poland's entire existence, and this might piss off the Polish, is being the dogs of the Vatican. That's it. They're the attack dogs of the Vatican. At one point, one Polish.
I'm talking of Poland while it's still like Congress Poland and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. They had no sympathy for Poland. Used to be the bully of Eastern and Central Europe.
Yes,
Poland used to be massively. They get what they deserve. Like, I'm not.
This is we're now this is this podcast now officially an anti-Polish podcast. Second, fourth, 10th partition of Poland.
Look, I've been to Polish churches. I like, the thing is, right? I like Poles as people. I like many aspects of their history, but it's like my view of Poland is similar to my view of like Croatia. They've just, in the past, they've been too belligerent and they've done things that's like, well, like, yes, Poland should exist, these countries should exist, but like, I don't see them as like friends. The friend enemy distinction.
I'm the opposite. Poland should not exist. It should be divided amongst Germany, Ukraine, and Russia, and Romania.
Yeah, I would say Poland is more of a Well, if you want to, yeah, but no one
Okay,
ever described themselves as Kievan Rus.
why? It
That's just
sounds
like
cool.
a
Sounds
name
cool.
later historians gave to that territory.
No, I can
Yeah, well,
but people say it's like you ethnically Ukrainian. I'm like, nope, Russian. Was like, what the fuck does that mean? It's like exactly. It's
oh,
like
well, you can identify how you want. You can
I wa-
identify as a woman if you want. I mean,
No, you can't. No, you cannot identify as a woman.
I'm just
I
kidding. I'm
guess if you're a
kidding.
constitutional monarchist, you can identify as a woman because
I
the
mean, you know what? That is actually that would be a fascinating study of how they can hold those contradictory ideas together. But I guess it comes down to rule of law. Do you
yeah.
want rule of law where law trumps all, or do you want a sovereign
Well,
where
look,
like the sovereign trumps all?
if the
And
sovereign
and I
if the sovereign cannot make law binding on all subjects, he is truly not sovereign. A sovereign should be able to make war and peace, and be able to make
well
taxes. Sorry, I'm trying to quote
well
Jean Bodin. Stop interrupting me.
sure.
And that's the thing. None of these people are sovereign. I mean, Queen Elizabeth was sovereign. She's still alive. She's in Argentina.
No, but that was always my argument too when it came to he who makes like the laws and such. You need to have someone to be above the law to make laws because you can't subject yourself to something you create, and you can't create something if you're not above it, right? You can't make something if you're subordinate to the thing that you make. That'd be like saying that God can't like do anything he wants because he's bound by his creation. He's not bound by his creation. He's right? So in a monarch, you can't have a constitutional monarch because by definition the monarch must be above the constitution, must dictate the constitution. So
Yeah, that is very accurate. Jean
in
Bodin said basically no one would either there's certain things that a monarch is above everything, even in absolutes like myself would say the king is not above everything. No one's Jean Bodin said that the only thing that's above the king is the laws of God and nature, which no one is above, which is true.
well, yeah, you can't as sovereign, you can't like say, "Oh yes, like gravity's going to cease to function or strong nuclear force isn't going to work." Like obviously, there are certain intrinsic
What if
realities, but
what if the sovereign of the future Anglo Empire was a flat earther and he declared that the earth is flat?
I think it would. I've kind of thought about problems like this a lot in my life. Not about flat Earth or whatever, right? But like, what do you do when you know something is fundamentally false, but you're sort of compelled to accept it for whatever reason, you know?
You don't.
And it often comes down to like say religion. Let's say, and yeah, as a devout Orthodox Christian, my faith isn't like shaken or anything. But like let's say definitively religion was proven false, right? No
Yeah.
God, no nothing, right? But it's just assuming it was right. And I think in that with that revelation, I would still believe and function according to that system, because if religion and those things do not exist, I would attempt to will them to exist because because they should exist, if that makes sense. So and that's how I see those kind of things. So if a monarch,
Nation, I always feel like this podcast, like I'm just saying off the wall things and you're just trying to make a good point.
I try to tie it all together and harmonize the best I can.
Yeah. See, I've always said I always said that you're more well spoken than I am. Which I like. To be fair,
Yeah.
like I fully can do that thing. I can do it too. It's just I prefer more. I'm more the in your face right wing. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
gay. More
I
along.
know what you want. We don't want it to be a snooze fest. I mean, I know you want to keep it light too,
Well,
because these topics can get pretty heavy. So it's nice to have a bit of levity.
yeah. I mean, it's like what the dictator of Belarus said to the I think it was the president of France. I forget who they said to. It's like it's better to be a dictator than gay. He called Macron a homo. Like it's like
I
it's
mean,
like
and to be fair, I'd rather be dictator than gay. Like if given the option, it's like, well, yes, I will be a dictator. Thank you.
you're a dictator. You're a homo. Gay.
Yeah.
We need to bring that back. Just call it it's like you need to respect the LGBT. It's like nah, fag.
Uh,
If we take a closer look at the fascist countries and movements of the early 20th century, we'll discover a common thread among all these states and movements. They all placed great emphasis on building a strong image around their leader, like a cult of personality. Now, you might wonder, what makes a cult of personality such a significant element within the fascist ideology? There are three main reasons why a cult of personality is so fundamental to fascism. Number one, it can be used to mobilize the masses. A cult of personality and a strong popular ruler are essential tools for mobilizing the masses under a fascist regime. By promoting a charismatic leader as the embodiment of the nation, fascists create an emotional attachment and a sense of unity.
That's every form of government, though. Like every, democratic, fascist, what communist, it doesn't matter. Everyone engages in a bit of leader worship or leader veneration because that's how you sell the ideas. You put up Trump, he sells the Republican ideas. You put up Kamala Harris or Biden, and they become the face of the ideology. So that's not really much of a point. Like, yes, when you're doing politics, you identify the person leading the movement as the embodiment of politics. Doesn't matter.
I mean, one of the issues I see is Levator will not stop being intellectually dishonest because he showed a picture of that. Now I forgot that guy's name. It's a very hard name to pronounce. Joan Antonio Prima de Rivera and the Phalanges. And there was two different forms of Phalangism. There was the more socialist-leaning Phalanges who were kind of syndicalists in their ideology, and there was the more right-leaning Phalanges. There was also the Carlists, and there's also left and right-leaning Carlists, surprisingly. The Carlists were staunch monarchists, and they were in a coalition with the Phalanges. And the thing with Prima de Rivera is no one who actually supports Franco really likes Rivera. The people who like Rivera are the people who scream that Franco wasn't a socialist enough, and the crybaby revisionists who don't like Franco for being a staunch right winger and telling a lot of the Phalangists to get bent and that we can't wage war. We don't have the tools to wage war. It'd be really difficult and be a strain on our economy. And the thing is, though, is that it's funny how he says Prima de Rivera, but the Rivera's murder and the subsequent attacks on the right is what spurred the right on into action in Spain and led to the destruction of the left in Spain. It was Franco who led the charge and used Rivera as a rallying point, but Rivera was perfectly willing to work with the monarchists and form a broad coalition front. Like, what is this problem monarchists have with forming a coalition with fascists? Like, fascists, we don't fully agree on everything, but we can at least agree that we can deal with the modern leftists and the liberal Democrats.
I mean, it comes down to purity spiraling at the end of the day. I mean,
yeah, you
like,
should keep weirdos out of your movement, but like,
no, but like the left is better at making and make that coalition building.
I mean,
and
not anymore.
Because essentially, well, I mean, that we still have to wait and see for that. But it's more like if you're on the left, any form of left, you're like, oh, you hate the system, you want to overthrow the system and put something new in place. And if you're on the right, you broadly want to sustain the system or reform the system back to sort of a previous iteration of the system. So it's backwards or kind of static looking. And because of that, the right will infight and all this kind of stuff. Where the left is just basically, well, we want to smash the current system and put something new. So if the left ever wins,
wait,
right?
where I paused it, isn't that the British Union of Fascists?
It is. That's Oswald Mosley.
Yeah, Mosley was a monarchist. He is specifically.
Well, so was Codreanu. So I mean,
like the British Union of Fascists actually got an argument with the British neo National Socialists because they were monarchists and the National Socialists were not.
Like the biggest issue is that this Lavender, he's putting all like Levator, sorry. I don't know. Like he's trying to make fascism as if it's like this coherent ideology. There isn't a book of fascism. Now, yes, I know there is Mussolini's Doctrine of Fascism,
Giuliani
but
Gentile's
but
doctrine.
I think what neither here nor there. The point is, right? Hitler didn't pick up that book and make a fascist system. Neither did Codreanu, neither did Franco, neither did any of the quote unquote fascist or authoritarian right wing states. So when I can look to communism, and I have the Communist Manifesto, Das Kapital, and I have the works of Lenin and the works of Mao, and I can kind of
You also
see.
you also have that one dirty Italian that who's the father of modern cultural Marxism, who totally based Mussolini, put in prison.
Oh, Gentili
No,
or the prison diary.
Yeah, the guy who looks like a tranny. He does.
Sure.
He does.
No, sure. But you get what I mean, though, right? Like, I can broadly, at the very least, if you're a Marxist, you believe in Das Kapital and you believe in the Communist Manifesto. And you can spin off your own little particular version of communism that you want, right? You have your specific things, but you can still go back to those two books, those two kind of founding documents of Marxism and communism, and you can go from there. But you can't do that with fascism. If you want to do that, like if you want to fully make a coherent kind of definition of fascism, you'd have to take in half a dozen movements, and then half a dozen movements that aren't even considered fascist, because people to this day argue, oh, was Franco fascist or not,
The
right?
answer is
And
no.
I think it's because, well, it depends on how you define fascism.
He's
But
not,
I feel the
though.
reason why
He's a authoritarian conservative.
dictator, well, but the point is though, right?
A man
They
who rocked a cape.
Yeah, so did Hitler. I mean, aesthetics aside. And the only reason I don't think they decry Franco as a fascist was because we were allied with Franco against the Soviet Union
Not
until
so.
his death in like the 70s.
No,
But that's literally it, right?
we actually did assassinate his successor in the 70s.
Well, either way, on paper, anyways, Spain was part of NATO, and Spain was aligned with the West and aligned with Europe. So it's like, oh yeah, no, we fought this huge war, killed like tens of millions of people to, destroy quote unquote fascism. Oh, we have this little fascist guy right here. It's a contradiction, right? And whether you want to think in not you specifically, but like if you want to spur it, but oh, was Franco spared for that? It doesn't matter. Yeah, that's the thing. You can't really unless you're gonna make. You have to make what Levator should do is he should make a definitive definition of what fascism is, and then we can see if his definition kind of aligns with history.
I mean, we're only like 4 minutes in the video. Donald. We should
Sure. Well, put it at 1.5.
The cult of personality fosters a cult-like devotion and inspires loyalty, encouraging citizens to rally around their leader's vision for the nation. Number 2, to consolidate power. Fascism seeks to concentrate power within a single ruling entity. A strong popular ruler acts as a unifying force that can bypass democratic processes and effectively implement policies.
Pause.
The cult of personality...
Pause. That's literally what every political system does. The second it takes power, it consolidates power. That's what's thinking Trump did with his executive orders and all the other things he passed.
Stalin.
And that's what our government. Sure, Stalin too, whatever. But I'm just using liberal democracy because I think he's advocating from a liberal democratic position. And also that's what the liberal democratic state has been doing for the past 70 years. Things that used to be like home matters or
well, do you want me to give you some examples?
No, but look at the laws, right? So all the liberal democratic governments have done is expand their power and their reach, right? So they're all consolidating power. That's why I have to read Burnham's whatever the managerial revolution. That's literally the way democracies, communism, and fascism work. They all try to consolidate power, and they want to centralize it under a system.
The liberal revolution. Yeah, I haven't gotten managerial revolution. I haven't read that one yet. I haven't read.
Yeah, it's free on. Well, you can find a bunch of books for
free. I don't pay for books.
Right.
Like even people I agree with, I do not pay for the literature. The point of putting out a manifesto is to put your ideas out there. Putting it behind a paywall defeats the purpose.
I'm saying archive.org has it for free, the managerial revolution. But anyways, the point is though, right? When he says every position, every government consolidates power. That's what you do once you take power. You're not going to take power and then not consolidate power.
I'll give you some examples. Up until I think it was the 1900s, immigration in the U.S. was a state-by-state issue. Now it's a federal
Yeah.
issue. It used to be a state issue.
Perfect example, or like the FDA, like all these kinds, even the things that are good.
Lincoln consolidated power. Lincoln was a liberal Democrat who supported consolidation of power.
Yeah. So so again, you press play now, but the point is, like, you can't say, oh, controlling power is uniquely fascist. Well, that's literally what every government does
You're saying
once it
press
takes
play, but you're
power.
still talking.
Yeah, sorry. That's my last point.
He elevates the leader to an almost divine status, granting them the authority to make decisions without substantial opposition. This consolidation of power is seen as crucial to achieving the rapid transformation and national rejuvenation envisioned by fascist ideologies. And number 3, it can be used to manipulate public opinion. A cult of personality can be utilized as a tool for manipulating public opinion and controlling information. By dominating the media and disseminating propaganda that glorifies the leader, fascist regimes can shape the narrative to their advantage. The strong popular ruler becomes a symbol of national pride and achievement, diverting attention from any shortcomings or failures of the regime. This manipulation of public opinion ensures the continued support and legitimacy of the ruler's actions within the fascist ideology. So, now let's examine what the exact
liberal Democrat rulers never take the L either. It's very, like, you can apply everything he said about, like, quote unquote fascists and apply it to liberal democratic governors and presidents and prime ministers too. So nothing he has said is uniquely linked or associated with fascism. I mean, you maybe the hero worship or the leader worship, maybe that delves a bit more into the fascist side. But I see the same thing with Trump, and I see the same thing with our leaders too as well. So, like in Canada, we have, there was a huge, like, leader worship with Trudeau for a while. I'm sure once Poleviev or whoever gets power, will be the same thing. Like, nothing you said is uniquely related to fascism in particular.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamental issue I see with, like, what Levato is saying is the America does that constantly. The NSA, what came out after Snowden, that the government's spying on people, the WikiLeaks, where they showed that the CIA was one of the things they were doing was trying to manipulate Estonians into accepting multiculturalism. Yes, sorry for that, Estonia, but not so sorry because your country is an irrelevant shithole, and I hate.
Like,
And your country is filled with pedophiles because the age of consent is 14. I feel the need as a Slav to shit talk other Slavic ethnic groups for being subhuman. Every Slavic ethnic group.
Estonians are Finno-Ugric. They're not
Fuck
Slavic,
them, they're
actually.
Asians.
Lithuanians are Slavic, and Latvians are Germanic.
No,
But go on.
But the point is, before I'm gonna get off on it, I'll keep myself focused on what I'm saying, is that the United States literally does this. Look at 2020 when it comes to the election of Donald J. Trump. They literally squashed the Hunter Biden laptop story as Russian disinformation when it was 100% true. That is manipulation of public opinion. Look at basically any of the CIA leaks where it showed that they were going to push homosexuality, abortion, and a bunch of other things to control the population. Look at what happened during our involvement in World War II, where we literally were jailing people like Father Coughlin before we were involved in the war. You could go back even farther with the Alien Sedition Act in World War I, where we were literally arresting people for opposing our involvement in World War I. And you could go even farther, where Lincoln was jailing journalists and literally putting people in prison for calling him a psychotic weirdo because he never had broad popular support. Every system, no matter what, besides monarchism, wants complete control. This essential thing to micromanage everyone's lives is a very much more prevalent in liberal systems and communist systems than it is in fascist systems. I mean, if you actually read accounts of what was going on in Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, Romania, it was pretty normal. The day-to-day life was pretty normal. A lot of it is just exaggerated Allied war propaganda. You live in Canada, for an example. There was Canadian churches that were being forced to let faggots march in the parades. Sorry, you can.
All I'm gonna say is that I'm not here necessarily to carry water for, like, fascism broadly speaking, but, like, again, like, the complaints that he's making against fascism I would make against liberal democracy, and to the degree that they're true about fascism, I make the same complaints. But I mean, I don't kind of know why. Like, basically, like what he's trying to get at is that power does not broach competition. And if you have a king, or if you have a monarch, well, the monarch has to be sovereign. But it's because he's trying to kind of mealy mouth his way around sort of a constitutional monarchy. How do you balance that? Like, he's basically trying to balance three systems. He's trying to balance liberal democracy with monarchy and fascism all together in one thing. So if like that's how you define monarchy and your ideal political system, of course there's going to be issues because they don't like you're trying to balance three powers instead of even two at that point. So I mean, that's kind of what that's my takeaway kind of so far in the video. But you can press play now.
The role of a monarch is, and there are two main reasons why it is important for a monarch to be a strong public figure. Number one, they are the head of state, whether symbolic or non-symbolic. In a monarchy, whether absolute or constitutional, the monarch serves as the head of state, representing the nation's history, traditions, and values. As a powerful and strong public figure, the monarch can inspire national unity, foster a sense of identity, and provide stability to the country. Their presence and influence can help instill confidence and pride among the citizens, especially during times of crisis or significant national events. A strong monarch who commands respect and admiration can effectively promote national cohesion and contribute to the overall well-being of the monarchy. That's why, during the First World War, numerous propaganda posters and pamphlets showcased the monarchs of both sides. After all, the primary duty of a monarch is to serve as a unifying figure that all citizens, regardless of their political beliefs, race, or religion, can admire and gather behind. These representations aim to foster a sense of unity and loyalty among the diverse population. It was a way to strengthen the bond among the people, transcending their differences and encouraging them to stand together. And number two, the monarch also serves a strong diplomatic role. The monarch often plays a crucial role in diplomacy. Their power and influence can be utilized to strengthen international relations, foster goodwill, and promote the country's interests on the global stage. A powerful and strong public figure.
Again, it's just that you can't have it both ways. You can't have the monarch be this kind of affable like symbol, and then like no one is going to respect a monarch if they don't actually have kind of power or some sway in some way. So he's trying to kind of balance it both ways. And you again, you have to pick. You have to pick who's going to be sovereign. Is it going to be the monarch, right, or is it going to be the government, right? And if you want the monarch to be above the government, then so be it, obviously. But people support a monarch over the government because the monarch is the embodiment of the nation, and is supposed to be the best of the nation, right? And the interest of the monarch is with the nation, whereas the government, it's usually, they get mired in the affairs of daily politics, and the monarch's supposed to be above that. But in being above that, they still have power and control over that, right? So again, it's again, that's kind of what he's coming from. I think that he's trying to like have it both ways, where the monarch has power, but they're symbolic, and they have influence, but not power. It's like it's one or the other. Like you look at how the monarchy is treated in Canada, there's very little respect for the monarchy, right? And that's because essentially the monarch has no power here. And yes, even though the king could have power in Canada, he chooses not to. But then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they have power or not. They don't use that power. Then what's the point of it, right? So anyway, you can continue.
Well, what I'm going to say is that Levator has this, he has this weird delusion where any of three of those people were not extremely religious people. Who was king during World War One in England?
King George.
Yeah, George was a very religious person. So was I mean,
So
I think,
so was the Kaiser too. The
like
Kaiser too was.
they,
I've read his memoirs. They're
yeah,
pretty good.
they were both very religious men, and here's the thing: it's like diverse backgrounds. What is Lavender smoking? England at that point was like 99%
Well, the
English.
the Empire, the Empire. So that include
Those are
India and stuff too
those
as
are
well.
subject realms. Those aren't core realms. Those are outer colonies. No Englishman in the during World War One would call an Indian a Brit. Like they were a subject. They weren't a citizen. That's a difference. There's a subject and
Well,
citizen.
everyone is tending to the subject. There would be no citizens in
Okay, what
England, anyways.
whatever. But the point is, the only country that England has a close bond to is Bhutan.
Hmm.
And sorry,
Um,
no, the Bhutan. Where are the Gurkhas from? That Bhutan, that region. I'm sucking at geography. because the British were so impressed with the Gurkhas kicking the shit out of them that Queen Elizabeth, the British Empire, created a lasting friendship with them, and the Gurkha regiment still serve Her Majesty loyalty. And the Gurkhas were used to put down the Indians where they belong, which is under the boot of the British Empire. This is the difference: is that there was different classes of people in England, and there's nothing wrong with that. The Indians were below the British, the average Brit, and even in Germany, your average German was above all of those subject realms. Like this whole idea that monarchists don't believe in some sort of hierarchy, or that we're doing multiculturalism right, we're doing multiracialism right. Absolutely not. Especially Nicholas II. Nicholas II was a fundamentalist, or was a very Christian person. The Romanovs were probably the most religious monarchs in Europe at the time. Like Nicholas II's entire reason for getting involved in World War I is so he could take back Constantinople. That's the only reason he was involved in it.
I think when it comes to multiracialism and like this and that, the monarch is a unifying figure because they are meant to be an idealized form of what the nation is. They don't necessarily, and I think I might have said this before, but I'm still trying to process these ideas to some degree myself as well. The monarch doesn't represent every man. The monarch doesn't represent, say, the peasant or the millionaire, like equally per se. What the monarch represents is sort of like the idealized form of what a Brit should be, or what a German should be, or what a Russian should be, right? And it's a figure that it doesn't matter what position in life you are, you can look up to and say, I want to be like them. So a monarch, by definition, has to be someone of high moral quality, high intelligence, high martial like or at least represent these traits in some kind of way, because the nation as a whole is trying to aspire to what the monarch represents and what the monarch is. And I think that's why the monarch is a unifying figure,
I mean
because it's someone who you want to impress and be likened to. You want to be a man of the king, right? You don't. Yeah, go on.
I mean, that's why Trump got elected. You could say Trump has a cult. You could accuse Trump of all of these things Levator's accusing: fascism or monarchism.
Well, you see, I didn't want to bring up Trump, right? Because based on everything he said, I say, oh yes, well, Trump does this, Trump does that, right? But the left already loves to claim that Trump's a fascist anyways, which is why I'm trying to look at like Biden and whoever else.
Trump isn't a fascist.
No, I know, right?
No.
But I'm just saying that like, in the discourse,
Trump is the first emperor of the United States. As soon trust the plan.
Sure, of course. But I'm just saying.
Look at all the January 6th types. They trust the plan. Plan trusted. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm just saying that in like kind of popular discourse right now, everyone loves to say that Trump is a fascist, Trump love whatever. So I didn't want to touch that just because like it's low hanging fruit, obviously. That's why I brought up like Biden and Kamala, because they do the same thing where they try to set up kind of a pseudo cult of personality. The point is though that Biden and Kamala are unlikable people, right? Like that's kind of the issue.
No, I don't think Biden's an unlikable person. I think Biden's a perfectly likable person. He runs on politics he doesn't believe in. I think Biden is legitimately senile. I'm sure Biden seems like a fun guy to hang out with. George Bush, apparently, from all the interviews of people who hung out with him, celebrities, like he's a really fun guy to hang out with. He's just not a good leader.
Sure, no, and I get that, but I mean, I hope you kind of get what I'm saying though too as well. It's like
and I'll make you a joke.
I think Trump has a natural kind of aura about him where you do want to like emulate him and like him and be liked by him, kind of thing.
You could say he has a glowing orange aura around him.
A glowing orange aura. He has a magnetism, I guess, right? You could say.
Well, he does. I mean, you can see like people always like Eric Trump 2028. I'm like, no, Barron for future dictator of America.
Sure. But that's just the point, though. Like, yeah, you can't say, oh, because a character has like a gravity that makes them fascist. I mean, Trudeau had a gravity around him, which is why some people liked him initially. Justin Trudeau. Again, I never liked him, obviously, but like you could see that he did have like he had a gravity that appealed to a particular type of people, and that's why he saw the successes he has. That
middle-aged childless cat ladies, soccer moms that his boyish
yeah,
charms made their
and
made their
hey, like
downstairs busy.
that's why I don't support democracy in one. And for right, I don't think those types of people should be dictating how the nation is ruled over. But again, neither here nor there. But yes, he did.
I don't know. I was walking down. Let me give you an example. I was walking down the road yesterday, and I saw someone legitimately um, walk with got walk directly into a down power line, and they didn't die, but they got a bit of a zap. I was like, I'd like this person has the same democratic rights as me. No, that's retarded. And if you can't figure out, don't stick your hand on a hot stove or something along those lines. It's like the idea that you have to put a label on something that says "Do not stick your hand here." Like we have to have laws because of that, because those people legitimately, if you stick your hand next to a really powerful saw, it will remove your hand.
Yeah, well, so what can you do?
Figure
I mean,
can
that's
represent the
also
nation
that's
or the
also.
state.
I would say that's also a byproduct of democracy, where everything kind of gets like structured around the lowest common denominator. But anyways, you can press play now.
Visits, official ceremonies, and international summits, projecting an image of authority and gravitas. The monarch's involvement in diplomacy can enhance the nation's reputation, attract foreign investments, and open doors for economic and cultural exchanges. They can act as a
Pause.
unifying figurehead who transcends.
You could also send like Billie Eilish do the same thing though.
Yeah.
Right? Or some other celebrity, right? So, anyways, nothing they have said is unique to monarchs. They just send I don't know who's a famous person who's a I don't know, I don't know much about pop culture in
Good.
America or whatever. I was gonna say like Bob Dylan, like you said Bob Dylan to like be like to schmooze with someone, or send Kanye West, right, to like some African country to like be chill with them. Oh no, well, that's what America. Dennis Rodman can go to North Korea, right? It's like like for all yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
it's not a good.
It's not a good argument. I mean, but to be fair, I fully
No.
support Dennis Rodman being our ambassador to North Korea. I mean, it's
Sure,
hilarious.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, here's an example. Walt Disney had a massive amount of influence on modern anime. That's a massive amount of influence. He's not a monarch. He's simply he is a
Right.
businessman and an animator and a writer.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's maybe it's because Levator, I don't know, like I don't know how Muslims view monarchy, but maybe like, it's just completely devoid of anything kind of substantive, really. It's
uh,
very like secularized. And my arguments for monarchy, like
which is
they
funny
don't
because monarch
they don't
Levator isn't a
sorry,
second is a Muslim is a who says when I talked to him he said he did go to
mosque.
yeah, so
But like this nigga should make like a video on like Islamic monarchy
he
then.
does
Like
have
I'd watch
videos.
that. That'd be kind of cool.
He does have
He
videos
does?
on his
Okay, well that's interesting. Like talk about like the caliphate or reestablishing the caliphate under like the successors of Muhammad or something.
but
And like what does
that
monarchy mean in Islam? Like oh that'd be cool. Like
that's the real issue with European Muslims is that they're completely at odds with the rest of the countries around them because again they practice the faith of an invading power and no one likes them because of it.
yeah, but I mean, like I'm a stinking monarchist and no one likes me, but I still like defend monarchy and stuff. Like, I don't do what I do for friends. Like I do what I do because it's like, true.
Maybe.
So I don't know. And if he's a Muslim, he should have that much like self-respect and belief in his own values that he should espouse for that. Like
Well,
I don't know.
that's the issue with Bosnians and Albanians. Like Albanians will hold up like pictures of Skanderbeg. It's like Skanderbeg wouldn't piss in your face. You ninth century. You I'm be honest. You moon worshipping desert heathen. That's how I view
Yeah,
Islam.
and no offense would like I don't know. I don't know. Would
I don't
come,
think anybody should say offense. If you believe that your religion is true and the other person's religion is false, you should have every ability to state that. I think Protestantism, where I respect Americans' Protestant values, I think it's ultimately false and is ridiculous. Same thing with Catholicism. If you're going to say that your religion is truth, is the word of God, you should state that openly and proudly. I have more respect for Islamic fundamentalists in Afghanistan. Like, Islam is true, it's true, it's the real religion, and we will not tolerate people trying to proselytize in this country. I don't really think you should argue with people. I don't really think you should really argue with people saying your religion is fundamentally false. I mean,
Because like I think he has a problem, right? Because the monarch, I mean, well, I don't know how he would like frame it per se. But if he's trying to say, okay, well, the monarch is meant to be both secular, a ruler, and religious leader, so like the caliph, right? Then he would say, like, okay, well, yes, you can't have like a fascistic kind of it's just weird. It's weird for a Muslim who's a believing Muslim to come after like fascism and Western Christian style monarchy, because it's like I feel like the arguments he should be making, as informed by his Islamic faith, should be totally different than
but
these kind
but
of
he but he
standard like
but he but
liberal
he
cut kind of
but he
arguments.
is a supporter of Western style monarchy. The issue I see with Levator and his I think his ideological blind spot is his Islamic worldview of Muslims wouldn't really be tolerated in a truly monarchical Europe. They wouldn't. They would be driven
No,
out of Europe 100%.
yeah,
Europe's destiny is Christendom. That's the fundamental issue. It's like so like an
right,
Albanian like monarchist would have to be like a either an Orthodox Christian or a very reactionary Catholic and want Islam removed from Albania because Albania's culture is inherently a Christian culture. If you look at it, it has no real influence. The Turks
yeah.
screwed up Albania for doing more damage to the Albanian culture, and the same thing with the Bulgarian culture. The true culture of Bulgaria is Orthodox Christianity. Are they Catholic? Wait, are Bulgarians Catholic? They're
No,
completely.
they're Orthodox. Bulgaria is like what I kind of laughed or I thought it was funny when you said Levator was a Muslim because I think like Bulgaria is
No, so
what
he's
90%
Bosnian.
Christian.
Bosnian. I
Oh,
always get those
well,
two.
you get Bulgarian. Oh man, Bulgarians
They
they're
both
ethnically
sound
a Turkish
similar.
people, but
They
they're
but
Slavabus. So like Bulgaria is basically 100% culturally Slavic, but they're ethnically Turkic because they were Mongols. They all converted and everything.
you mean ethnically Greek?
Bulgarian? No, they're they came from like
Turks aren't a real ethnic group. Turkmen are.
well they came past the Urals, so they're like a Turkic people. I know modern Turks are all primarily ethnically Greek, but like they actually like come from like
You,
past the Urals.
you
So
know, no. Now we're getting into pointless racialism.
oh no okay no you should, well it's not pointless. But anyways, the point is so I think that there are inherent contradictions in his worldview and what he's espousing. He's a Muslim, but he's kind of espousing liberal democratic values that any real Muslim should be totally opposed to. If he wanted to be consistent, he should look to like Saudi Arabia or the UAE or the other one, not Libya.
Iran. Uh,
Sure. And the thing is, right? He can say what he likes, but like Saudi Arabia as a monarch, as a monarchy, is very fascistic in how it operates, with how like there's state power and economic power under
you
the
you you
monarch directly.
you
Like I
arrested
don't
for
know.
witchcraft. You cannot
Hmm?
practice witchcraft in Saudi Arabia. You will be
Right?
arrested.
Yeah. So I don't know. But anyways, he
Witches
can go on.
based. I support arresting witches.
Political divisions and represents the nation's collective interests. One could argue that the monarch also possesses a certain level of cult of personality, although it is considerably milder compared to the extreme manifestations seen in fascism, particularly within the context of a constitutional monarchy. Now, taking into account the points I've discussed thus far, we come across our
Pause.
initial problem when it comes
Wait, wait. That's
That he's looking from a very 20th century perspective. There are times where like monarchs have like a super high cult of personality. Like I like anyways, like
you ever
read
seen
the Quran.
read what people say about blessed Saint Charles.
But even like past monarchs too as well through the whole history. Like there have been people who've been pretty devoted to their monarch who cult that you would say
Who was the
cultish.
king? Who was the king of Poland during the second siege of Vienna?
Was it it wasn't Big Casimir. I'm not super up to date with Polish stuff because it traditionally hasn't interested me. But
Yeah, those are massive cults of personality. You ever seen like the
yeah,
depictions of Peter the Great? Like literally, those are cults of
yeah,
personality around Peter the Great. Alexander's the king of cults of personality. He literally declared himself
yeah.
a literal descendant of the gods. I mean, this isn't even like if you go to
Yeah,
Asia.
we've literally worshipped gods, or we've literally worshipped monarchs as gods. So it's like, or descendants of gods, anyways. So it's like, yeah, I don't
The
know.
Emperor of Japan is literally the son descendant of the Sun King.
The son, Amaterasu,
Amon.
Amasuru.
Yeah, they are literally considered descendants
Yeah.
of gods and are the head of.
Well, he denounced that. But
That's
your point
lame.
your point is your point is true.
That's very lame. You were the emperor.
He Yeah, and what about yeah, hey Levator, talk about what about Japan? Because Japan was kind of fascist too, right, under Tito, and the military
Tito.
role,
You
like, is
mean
that?
Tito is Yugoslavia? You rat.
Oh, am I thinking of Toto?
Toto.
Who did
Toto.
that?
Toto.
No.
Toto.
Oh, Nick, you're gonna be heck for calling him Tito, and it's like, come on, give me a break. That's an easy mistake to make.
No, it's not.
Anyways, but the point is though, right? What about Japan? Why are you just talking? This is classic. Why monarchism and fascism are incompatible? What about Japan though? Because this is literally the time period, right? Why is it just Europe? Anyways,
Oh,
interesting.
because, I mean, not even just King Zog. Literally, it's literally spelled that had a massive cult,
I
but
know, it's hilarious.
King
Like,
Zog. It's
uh,
like this is Zionist occupied government.
yeah. Like, as I said, I'll tell you why monarchy and fascism are incompatible. It's because you can only have a single sovereign. And if you have like a fascist dictator who wants to be sovereign, there's going to by necessity be a clash between the two, and only one can win out, and one will have to be subordinated. Now, if you consider fascism less of a political system in of itself and a way for a government to survive, or a nation to survive during times of trouble, well, then yes, you can have like a monarch act as a fascist. I mean, like, we've seen that in history too. Like when King Henry VIII in England, he wiped out all the Catholics. He did that because he saw Catholics as a threat to his power base, and he engaged in actions that, pretty underhanded and like barbaric to accomplish his kind of will that way. And if you want to call that like a
Well,
fascistic thing, you can.
look at
But
Charles
but
the
it just
First.
become, yeah,
Charles the
yeah.
First had a
It,
massive cult of personality around him.
it's just like, oh, is fascism just, oh, like, the government or the leader does things I don't like and that are a bit violent at times? Like, I don't know. I'm so sick of fascism. Jeez.
Fascism is when fascism is when you're well dressed.
So when you're, well, the king, like, monarchists are usually the best dressed people. So I don't know what that tells you.
Oh, fascism is when
Uh,
literally everything I dislike.
To the relationship between fascism
yeah.
and monarchism. Both systems rely on the presence of a formidable public figure, particularly in the case of fascism, where it takes a step further by consolidating political and public power within the hands of the party. Let's imagine a scenario where you, as the leader of a fascist monarchist nation, have successfully established a robust cult of personality around yourself, aiming to amass greater political power and solidify your rule. However, you now face a rival in the form of the monarch, who also serves as a prominent public figure. This inevitably leads to a delicate balance of power, since the citizens, while compelled to pledge their allegiance to the fascist party, are also obligated to pledge their loyalty to the monarch. This will always end up to be a sort of a road bump or even a roadblock for the fascists, as it prevents them from fully solidifying their political power. And in the event of a disagreement or even crisis between the leader and the monarch, whose side should a citizen take? They pledge their allegiance to both of these figures, and siding with one will end up breaking their oath to the other. A prime example of this dynamic can be observed in Italy, the birthplace of fascism, during the tumultuous relationship between Benito Mussolini and King Victor Emmanuel III. While Mussolini himself was not a monarchist and harbored a complex association with the crown, he aimed to dismantle the monarchy indirectly rather than outright. At that time, the monarchy enjoyed significant popularity among Italians, and any direct attempt to abolish it would likely have sparked a civil war. Hence, Mussolini pursued a strategy of influencing the youth, raising them in the ways of fascism, with the hope that they would eventually lead the charge in a smoother transition away from the monarchy. A similar narrative can be observed regarding Victor Emmanuel as well. Despite holding the complete authority and power to dismiss Mussolini at any given moment, he faced a similar dilemma. The fascists, too, enjoyed considerable popularity, and removing Mussolini abruptly would likely have sparked another round of civil war. Thus, Victor Emmanuel chose to wait until 1943 before finally taking the step to dismiss him. This dynamic invariably leads to a delicate balance of power, akin to a...
That's actually untrue. Victor Emmanuel was never popular. He never actually fully unified Italy behind him. His dad was actually assassinated. Like that's a myth. Victor Emmanuel was never particularly a popular person. Maybe among older Italians, but no one really particularly liked him.
Well, I'm willing to give Levator the benefit of the doubt in that instance. Yeah, I mean, the point he said there is accurate. that if you have, but it's like, what's the
Well,
no,
that
but I agree with that. Like, if you can't have two people vying for the same role,
well,
essentially. So
you'd say
that's
you could
true.
make the same argument against constitutional monarchy. Look what
No,
happened.
and that, yeah, that is true too as well.
Look what happened in Greece in Greece when they abolished the monarchy. The same
Yeah,
thing happened.
military coup,
Yeah, there was
essentially a fascist dictatorship for a while.
yeah. I mean, they had a coup d'état, and then the liberal Democrats basically rigged the election into abolishing the monarchy. Plenty of countries have democratically abolished the monarchy. You could say the exact same thing about constitutional monarchies. Are you loyalty to the constitution or to the monarch? Which one? It's a very stupid point. It's a very god awful point. And also, here's the idea.
Yeah.
I think there's this myth of monarchy that monarchists don't seem to accept. Is that sometimes certain houses have forfeited the right to rule because they were completely bad at their jobs. I mean, Jean Bodin makes this point that you can have a success if you have several very good kings and you build great roots of your house. The same thing with building anything. You need a good foundation. But if your roots and your foundation are shit, then the monarch will be overthrown. If you are followed up by a really good king, by a god awful king, you're going to have a very short dynasty. That is actually what happened to Justinian the Second's descendants. And I'm gonna just say this: Mussolini should have just fully just had Victor Emmanuel shot and declared himself king of Italy. He is the one who dealt with the socialists. Victor Emmanuel wasn't doing shit. He was literally letting them run rampant all over Italy and murdered his father. Did nothing. The Victor Emmanuel, the House of Emmanuel is completely innate capable of ruling Italy. They sucked at it. They were awful. They never really unified Italy behind them. I mean, the same thing with the Iron Guard. The Iron Guard, Codreanu was much more along the lines of someone who should be king of Romania than either Christian the Second or Michael the First. They were both god awful, incapable of being in charge. They didn't inspire confidence. One was a philandering womanizer who cheated on his wife, got a divorce, was stealing from the public coffers, and was literally just embezzling hundreds of millions of dollars of the Ukrainian economy into his corrupt, whore of a wife's pockets. And Codreanu
But
was
the problem with that though is that Codreanu was like, I mean, again, he's my emblem for everything I do online, essentially, because I hold him in a high admiration. I view him as a saint.
he is a saint.
Right. But the thing is, right, his son could have been a complete idiot, or his grandson or great grandson. And no, but within the realm of possibility, right? And that's the dice roll you take when you have monarchy. It's that you can, sometimes you have good leaders and sometimes you have bad leaders. But monarchy, it doesn't select necessarily for a particular kind of ruler. And
Well,
that's where you do have.
well, in
Hmm?
democracy, you always get aggressively mediocre leaders, self-serving.
You, well, you get the exact same personality, because the same personality that's able to manipulate the population to get them to vote for them, right? I mean, again, I don't know. Hindsight's always 2020. If I was Victor Emmanuel and I saw the success of Mussolini, I would have been willing to say, look, El Duce, I'm willing to like work with you all the way. I will support the will of your party and the people in this. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't have subordinated myself to, but I wouldn't and try to antagonize them as well. And if I was Mussolini, I'd do kind of the same thing as well. I would try to work within the systems that had been established. Because as a fascist, your goal isn't to overthrow the government, overthrow the system as it exists and create something new. It's to preserve that and to propel that into the future. You're meant to, again, keep what exists as it is and then elevate that. You're not a communist trying to overthrow the system.
I just realized that Levader's trying to disprove fascism, but all the footage he shows a bunch of extremely well dressed young men. It's like so when you're a monarcho-fascist, you surround yourself with well-dressed, well-tailored young men. Fascism, you will be extreme
Well,
monarch.
I mean, Fuentes would like that.
Uh,
Good old Nicky boy, he would like a little
look, we do not
well dressed man. But
well-dressed men.
uh,
I mean, I'll say one thing about the European right and the monarchists in Europe. monarchists over. Look, okay, that was it. That was a jumbled sentence. But I'll say one thing about the European right that the American right has a problem with is closeted homos. Monarch is actually weirdly we don't have a problem with closeted homosexual men.
Well,
Surprisingly,
because monarchists are usually religious. So,
I mean, so
and
is
if you're a closeted homosexual, you're not going to advocate for a system that's going to harm you in the long run. Obviously,
yeah. I mean, I get. Mm, yeah, that is true. 100%
right?
true.
So,
I guess that's why people advocate so much Nietzscheanism. Nietzsche wasn't gay, but philosophy's kind
you
of
can
gay.
use you can use his
No,
philosophy to justify that.
yeah, I mean, if you're doing a man, if you're on top, you're clearly the master in that situation. That's enough gay jokes.
A grand chess game played between the fascist leader and the monarch. Neither can make swift and decisive moves against the other without facing significant consequences. Therefore, they must both adopt a strategic and patient approach, endeavoring to garner support from the people and interest groups to sway the tide in their favor. It becomes a battle of long-term influence and persuasion as they vie for
Pause
loyalty
it.
and sway the balance of power.
Since I'm populist delusion pilled, I would say that it's not so much the people. People are irrelevant. It's more the interests. So it's sort of what group has the most like sway over, the
Right.
industry, military, and the church. So that's kind of like the thing. That's what I would say. And you say with Mussolini, because as the war started to, not go in Italy's favor, that's when Victor Emmanuel moved to remove him. Because once the military lost faith in El Duce, well then, like that. So that's kind of an interesting point he brings up. But I would say that it's not so much the people; it's
But but
more sort of
but but
the
but
castles in society.
but you got to see these two pictures. Which man has the better hat? One man does not have a hat. One man does have a hat.
I mean, I don't know what the Italian crown looks like, but I don't know. It's probably impressive. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, but like Mussolini is still way better dressed than Victor Emmanuel.
Sure.
I
Like
see.
yeah, go on. Yeah.
I'm judging people by who is better dressed, who wore it better. That is the now way we judge political figures, and that's why I'm not a communist. All of the communist clothing is very boring, except the North Koreans with their obnoxiously large hats and ridiculous amounts of medals. But yeah, you
Go
could
on.
you could say that about any system of government, really. I mean, there's a power play between people. You could say that the nobility the monarchs and the merchant class, the monarchs and other
Well,
monarchs.
look at America right now, right?
Yeah,
We've seen a type of transition of power from kind of like
the multiracial
left wing.
the multiracial looters versus who white heritage American majority. Yeah, that's really
No, but like no, but look who Trump's buddying with. He's partnered with like these Silicon Valley kind of elite types, right? To what degree that kind of like changed how things work is yet to be seen. But like we kind of see that you have Musk, you have all these kinds of other officials, and they seem to be occupying a greater role of influence and power in America currently than the previous kind of groups they had, the social justice groups. So there are these different interests,
I
and
mean
they play them they play off of each other,
I
and that's
mean
kind of how Trump.
I mean that's just Machiavellianism. That's just what Machiavelli said.
Well, and that's politics,
That's just
So
that you could say that about anything. It's like that's not unique to fascism. That's politics in general. That's how power functions.
exactly,
That
exactly. And one of the main things is the military. That's
yeah,
like the central thing. And the people, like to what he was saying, yes, the people are a group that you do want to bring on side, but they're kind of the least powerful because a small minority is always going to overpower an
but
unorganized majority.
no,
So,
no, you got that backwards. A small organized minority will always overpower a disorganized majority.
oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. So yeah, so it's less so about the people, but it's more kind of consolidating power around these institutions, which include like the church, and which I mean to be fair, Mussolini probably would never been able to have the church because you have the monarch, and the monarch is directly subordinated to the church. Even though Mussolini gave the Catholics the Vatican, I mean that only goes so far, and their loyalty was always going to be with Emmanuel.
Yeah,
So as you, yeah.
the loyalty of the Catholics is always to their internationalist church. Catholics were the first communists. I have to get at
Yeah,
least I have to get at least one anti-Catholic statement. I
you can press play.
yeah, I mean I'll say I'm not fond of Catholics, especially Catholics.
Power in their
I mean, a
direction.
lot of
Undoubtedly, this presents a challenge not only for the monarch, but also for the fascist leader and the party, as I previously highlighted. They face the pressing need to swiftly and smoothly eliminate any figure that could potentially pose a threat to their control over the nation. However, dealing with a monarch adds complexity to this task. The intricate nature of their relationship means that the situation is not as straightforward as desired. Additionally, the uncertainty of when the balance of power might shift in favor of one or the other further complicates the matter, making strategic maneuvering and careful calculations crucial for both sides. Now, let's consider a scenario in which the fascist leader emerges victorious in this quote-unquote great game and successfully diminishes the influence of the monarch, ultimately stripping them of political power and outshining them as the public figure. However, this outcome presents yet another quandary, the very purpose of maintaining a monarchy. If you strip a monarch of all their political power and if you also downgrade their role as a popular figurehead to the point of irrelevance, then what's the use of having a monarchy in the first place? It becomes crystal clear that the logical step forward would be to eliminate it altogether, because honestly, a monarchy without a purpose is not
like what's happened in the Netherlands and in Sweden and Canada and to a lesser extent the UK. So basically all that's happened anyways under liberal democracy anyways. It's just in monarchy or just in fascism, it seems to be a quicker process, but essentially they amount to the same thing.
Well,
So
yeah,
anyways.
I mean you could make the same argument against any system. Any system does that. Stalinism with Trotsky,
Well, yes, yeah.
Vladimir
Power does not want to be challenged.
Vladimir
Power does
Vladimir
not want rivals.
Well, look at the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks and the other
Yeah,
socialists in Russia in the 1900s. It's funny because
but
Levator has a lot of
specifically in
videos
monarchy.
Levator has a
Yeah.
lot of videos talking about that. You should understand the concept that all systems do that. It's a inevitable consequence of any system of government of different power blocks sharing it. You can't. There's no such thing as divided power. Power will always be centralized. That's why philosophies like libertarianism are patently retarded, because power is always going to be centralized. That's why I argue that all anarcho-capitalists, by the very nature of their philosophy, are actually neo-feudalists, which is base. So yeah.
nothing but a fancy residence where they idly pass the hours without contributing anything meaningful to society. King Michael I of Romania found himself in this exact situation with Ion Antonescu and the Iron Guard. Antonescu had full control of every political aspect of Romania, while Michael was supposed to be a sort of
Yeah, no,
monarch.
pause.
Antonescu wasn't.
Ian Antonescu slaughtered the Iron Guard. He
Well,
slaughtered. When Ian Antonescu rose to power, yeah, he did like kind of tout some Iron Guard stuff. He kind of allied with them, but then the Iron Guard rebelled against him, and like he wiped them out essentially. So like, and again, I don't like the situation in Romania is complex, and I've heard it from a priest that if you venerate Codreanu, you shouldn't besmirch Ana Antonescu. So in fidelity to what that priest was teaching, he was a Romanian. I'm not gonna besmirch Antonescu. But to say that, like, no, like, you can't like Codreanu was long dead, so you can't really hold him up as this kind of
he was
figure.
murdered by his father, and that's why the Romanian people were pissed, because he was actually popular. He was a very well liked
Right.
person. He was also the king. He also made every political radical in the modern sense look like a pussy, because the amount of times he got away with literal murder is astonishing. Just straight up treason, murder.
The virtue of Codreanu in a way, and I don't like to put it this way because it's a very like cynical kind of thing to say, right? But again, we're dealing with reality, right? Codreanu was martyred before he could ever take power. And because of that, there's endless speculation to what his kind of leadership would have been like. So after his death, yes, the Iron Guard did like commit a pogrom. They did some things that are, that people look down upon today. But then me as a Codreanu, I know, but me as a Codreanu like appreciator, I could say, well, hey, those actions were taken while he was dead, so he bears no responsibility on that. You get to kind of you can have your cake and eat it too with Codreanu because he died before anything bad happened, kind of that way. But
No, I'm
no,
sure
but you can't then like.
I thought he did shoot the prime minister before he died. Was that after?
I don't think he shot the prime minister.
No,
he shot.
He shot at least.
He shot.
He shot
I
a lot.
forget
He shot
the details, but it was like
he shot a cop. They got away. They got acquitted.
But no, but that cop was literally like torturing his people,
Well,
right?
yeah.
And like he took them to court, and there was like some because Romania was corrupt at the time, right? And no one besmirched Codreanu because that was seen as an act of justice. That wasn't an act of like murder, like oh I'm just gonna kill this guy who's my enemy. It was like no, this guy was literally like demonic in what he was doing, and then him being killed was seen as justice by everyone
Well,
involved.
no,
So
some of the things Codreanu did were just straight up were illegal, were insanely illegal. And he admits that they were illegal, and that, like when they were planning on assassinating the prime minister, they admitted he got away with that one too. Uh, he really was big into just, he's like, no
well, I
one's
mean,
getting.
he didn't get away with it because he was killed. So I mean, he got away with it to a point, but all considering how he like died,
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Codreanu was a lawyer. That was actually his profession.
yes, yes.
So, I don't know, I just find it interesting that
So I don't know, like
Codreanu was the only one, only member of the radical types and radical types who, even towards when they gained more and more power, never stopped getting his hands in the mud with everyone else.
no. I mean, he was a man of his people. He wasn't the kind to like or which is why his death is martyric because he didn't have others like die for him or fight for him. They were fighting for ultimately God and God's nation of Romania. They were fighting for that. It was very martyric, the entire legionary movement, and that's why
You know what I
that's why
find?
Volov like loved him. And
You know what I find interesting is that no one in Romania likes Michael the First or Christian the Second. Christian the Second is viewed as a
Carol the second.
Carol. That's just the Romanian version of Christian Carol. So that's
Sure.
it's actually Cornelius,
Carol,
not.
right.
But the point is that he's venerated to this day in Romania, and no one likes Michael or Carol in Romania. They're
Well,
viewed as traitors.
Carol had issues. I don't like.
He was
I
a
think
woman.
Michael was young when he
He
took
was a womanizing, philandering who gave away Romanian territory, was stealing from the national treasury, and his son was a backstabbing, underhanded prick who, instead of dying gloriously in a heroic last stand, sold the country out to the Soviets. Fuck both of them.
Well, I have a more sympathetic view to Michael, but
No, fuck Michael the First of Romania. I have no sympathy. Your crown should leave your head. If you can retreat and come back another day, fine. But if your entire thing is, I'm gonna hide out of Romania through the entirety of the Cold War, crying about it, and never ever seek to lead a Romanian resistance. Like even Hemia Simon, the successor to Codreanu, literally at one point was thinking about parachuting himself into Romania and starting an uprising against the Soviets. Carol was just crying, I think, in Brazil.
it does no good to martyr yourself to
Yes, it does.
for no end. It doesn't.
Yes, it does.
So
It's better to die on one's feet than live on one's knees. Is that the
it
whole idea?
depends. It all depends. No,
Sure.
I'm not because like while Michael existed, he was able to perpetuate the line, and it is at least conceivable that in the future there could be a restoration.
That would
And you
never.
can't do that if
That
your
will
entire
literally.
family's like
That will
wiped out.
literally never happen. No one likes them.
Yeah, well, that might never happen, but I mean, you don't. Since when do I care about what people like
Well,
or what the people want?
the thing is their house is completely dishonored, and they should never be restored for the entirety of the murder of Saint Codreanu, for the complete fuck up of the entire Romanian nation, the selling out the country to the Soviets. Yeah, I want someone's family's legacy that ruling over Romania.
Well, what if monarchs can commit acts of I don't know. They can repent and they can return if
Loyalty
uh,
to the
if they
idea.
if they normal.
Codreanu is correct when he thinks loyalty to the idea of monarchism is separate than loyalty to the idea to any specific monarch. I'm like I
Yeah,
Rich,
but who else is going to rise to power Like,
Someone.
I don't know. I think while you still have a line, you should kind of fight for that continuity. Because that's essentially what
Well,
monarchy is. Because then at what point is it's just like a revolutionary type, deal? Like legitimacy and authenticity does come from lineage.
why would you fight for someone? There's an issue with that. Why would you fight for someone who is basically just as shitty as the liberal Democrats? Like, I wouldn't fight for the House of Windsor. They're all, like, is there a member of the House of Windsor who wants to drive the Islamic weirdo, the rape gangs out of the UK, who would deport the Indians, rebuild the empire? No, there isn't.
I don't care. We have a king. I will kill and die for the sake of my king, regardless of who it is. It might be the king I want. Maybe if there was someone superior, I don't know. Maybe my loyalties would be tested in that case. But
But
like
you
as it
don't
stands, I have a
you
king.
wouldn't you wouldn't be a Jacobin.
No, I would
Actually,
not.
no.
I'm not. You can't. I'm not gonna like what. What kind of
What
what kind of what kind of flipping traitor would you be? You know what? Yeah, I might be. I might be more monarchist than maybe the king is in certain respects. Maybe I'm more right wing or this and that. But then what's it say if I betray that loyalty by supporting some dictator or some pretender to the
you
throne?
realize
I'm no better than a
you realize
liberal at that point.
Jacobinism is not like Jacobites are not uh Jacobites. The Jacobites are monarchists. They just want the house of yeah, I forget that house's name. But then again, the current claimant to
The
the
Stuarts?
no, the Stuarts are the current house. No,
No, that's the Windsors
no, whatever. The
or
Stuarts, the
yeah.
Stuart. But to be fair, the current head of the house of Stuart is a no wait. I think he's a homo. No, he's not a homo.
I mean, look, all things degenerate, even royal lines, and you have to fight really
Well,
darn hard over centuries.
the issue with the whole idea of supporting one royal line over any other royal line is look at where that gets in France. French monarchism is completely and utterly incoherent. There's people who support the legitimists, the
Which is why if I had power and I was in France and I had any sway over these things, I would force the descendant of Napoleon, the heir apparent, to marry the heir apparent, or I would line it up so that eventually all the like pretender houses
there's
or
three
legitimate
pretender
houses in
houses.
the Napoleonic whatever would become one. I would force them all to eventually marry into each other, and then you'd have one again. I would like I don't care if they hate each other or whatever. Like I would do like a good old fashioned forced marriage, like in the good old medieval days of monarchy. You want to have an alliance with Poland? Okay, well marry your daughter to him. That's what I would do. I would try to consolidate all the royal lines in France to kind of have a single line.
I
That's what
mean,
I would do.
but the argument is like, why is Napoleon even considered a royal line? He's literally a low-ranking, middle-class dude who rose to the rank of emperor through just military force.
I mean, that's a question more for the French and those arguments per se. But it would be that I would say that he was a heroic type figure, love him or hate him. There's plenty to love and hate that way. And and when you do look at his line, when you look at Napoleon the Third and that, like I don't know, it is a noble line that of Napoleon,
The direct
and it
action.
shouldn't, and I don't think it should be forsaken.
No,
I don't think it should be. I don't
direct
think it deserves to be
Napoleonic line
forsaken.
ended with his son who died when in his 20s.
Okay, well then they have no claim at
Well,
that
no,
point. It's like the House of Romanovs in like Russia. It's like, well, you have these like weird 47th cousins, but it's like it's just weird at that point. You'd probably need
well,
Russia to become legitimately like fascistic and then
I
kind
mean,
of establish a monarchy from that.
they're still the direct descendants of the House of Royxon.
Of the Ruriks? Of the Rurikids?
Yep,
Really?
yep, they still
No,
exist.
then no, that no, that
They
that's
st-
you have descendants, sure, but like the reason why we had the Romanovs is because the main Rurikid line got wiped out. I mean, technically the Romanovs were a Rurikid line. That's why they took over. Tsar Michael the First of Romanov, like was a Rurik. He was like a cousin, or he was like the closest in the Rurik line, which is why he
yeah,
became Tsar.
but there's I think the third cut second. first cousin of one of the Romanovs does exist. He's
I
currently
mean, like, yeah, like,
yeah, he lives in California.
well, I won't hold that against him. But I would say that like
Yeah,
the Romanov closest to the line is far closer to legitimacy than like the closest Rurikid, because the Romanovs themselves are closer to the like original Rurikid line.
but the current head of the guy who would be technically the head of the House of Romanov is a liberal democratic state senator.
Like every other king and monarch currently in the world, except in the Middle East or in Asia. So again, like, what can you do, right? This is the world we live in. We live in the world of degeneracy. We're going through the Kali Yuga. We're going through all this kind of stuff right
Stop
now.
saying with the Kali Yuga. I do not recognize you Hindu.
Hey, I live in practically a colony of Hindustan, so might as well
And
borrow
then
their terminology.
fucking
I you can press play.
Suddenly, Michael was able to launch a coup and successfully depose Ion Antonescu and the Iron Guard in 1944, despite his status in political affairs. If we can learn anything from King Michael's coup, is that even if the fascists win this great game against the monarch, still choosing to keep them around comes with the danger of them suddenly overthrowing the fascist government when the time is right with their remaining political ties. Just because you have won the game doesn't mean you will win the war. No matter how you see it, a monarchy will always be a roadblock and obstacle for the fascist party from fully consolidating their power and also still posing a serious political threat, even if their role as a figurehead is dwindling. If you ask me, for a fascist, there is virtually no good reason to want to keep the monarchy in the long run, as it can only pose a danger. All these points I previously mentioned apply mainly in cases where a monarch is either opposed or indifferent to the fascist regime. But what if the monarch themselves believes in the fascist ideology? This means that monarcho-fascism can work well if the monarch and the leader always cooperate, right? Well, not exactly. There are still a few flaws with this. I certainly do not deny that monarchs can believe in fascism. However, if we look at the early 20th century, we will see that the vast majority of monarchs were not particularly fond of fascism, and those that did mingle with the ideology mainly did it with ulterior motives, not because they necessarily believed in it. That being said,
it's because even by the mid 20th century, most of the monarchs were some degree of liberal, right? Even though they're like, like they still have the Enlightenment tradition. They were all trying to follow Louis the like the Sun King's example, and like try to be this enlightened kind of ruler. So again, that's I mean, I don't know what you can do with that. That's not inherently monarchist, and liberal and enlightenment values aren't inherently monarchical values. It's just the same kind of mind virus that infected the liberal West is what infected those who rolled over them as well. That's why you have to always steel yourself and guard yourself from these things. That's why that's why there's yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could say that about any system, and that's why we need to kidnap the heir apparent to the House of Windsor, not the older one. Who's the one who's like 12? Kidnap a 12-year-old, and he will be isolated in the middle of the woods of Royal Pennsylvania, and the only thing he has access to is
the entire collective works in Julius Evola.
No, not that. The entire collective works of reactionary thinkers, and then we will build up a massive volunteer force and overthrow 2 generations and install him as the new emperor of the revived British Empire. This is a 100% flawless idea.
Although, to quote whomever originally said this, man stopped having kings because man became unworthy of kings, and I feel like, yeah, no, we need to bring back personal nobility for those who are capable of it.
What we need to do is there's a lot of younger heirs apparent to thrones. We need to kidnap all of them and put them in a regimented training camp where they have no access to anything besides reactionary literature. And basically, people want to pretend, or they'll just change their opinions. Not at all. People don't actually rebel. That's a myth. If you can psychologically condition people to believe in anything.
You can press play.
Oh.
Trying to find a member of the royal family, especially the current monarch or successor to the throne who have fascist sympathies, is definitely not going to be an easy task, probably even an impossible one, because the chances of that even happening are extremely small. But let's say for the sake of argument that the monarch is also a fascist and agrees to collaborate with the leader. However, what if the king does not follow the fascist ideology of the leader? What if the leader believes in, let's say, legionarism, while the monarch believes in phalangism? They are definitely going to come to several disagreements on how the country should be run. And even if they do believe in the same fascist ideology, the possibility of disagreement on a certain issue is still very much possible. But again...
Okay, correct my ignorance. Is this meant to be Greece? Oh, no, this is Romania. But like, who's? Why are we sighiling though the Patriarch of Romania or the Bishop of Romania though?
Why
Like,
not?
I don't know. I know better. I don't know this image. Like, it's just very funny.
I think this is
It's
Romania.
like
Yeah, I think this is Romania. That definitely looks like the
you should.
patriarch.
Well, I don't think Romania had a patriarch at that point.
No,
But
they
it's just
did.
funny. It's
They
like, why are we
did. That they did have a patriarch at that time. Romania has been
at that
independent for a
point?
while.
No, but they didn't have a patriarch for a long time. It was like an archbishop or something. Like the patriarchate is somewhat like modernist or not modern,
I
but
know
you know what I mean.
Poland
Like
has had a patriarch for a while now. Like Poland's
like
independent.
20s. I
Okay,
think.
you know, look, I don't know why the U.S. isn't and U.S. isn't independent, North America isn't, but for some reason the same two patriarchs will give it to like Ukraine. I'm like, fuck you, fuck off, Greece and Poland.
Well, that was illegitimate, but I just want to say why we sighiling the Bishop of Romania or whatever.
Why
I just think
it looks he does kind of look he's like what I don't know, what would you do? Would you like have your hands behind your back, your head bowed or something? I don't know, I've never met a patriarch. I've met like an archbishop once.
I mean, so it looks like it's Patriarch Miletus, which he was bad. He wasn't good. Is that Miletus? It looks this is weird. I don't know why we're sighiling Patriarch Miletus. He was not very good. He was a Freemason and everything, but I don't know why.
Everyone was a Freemason in the 19th century.
Yeah, that doesn't make it right. But I just don't know why we're sighiling Patriarch Miletus. That's very funny to me. Anyways, you can continue.
Well, why not sighiling Patriarch Miletus?
I mean, he's not a political
leader. Let's say,
leader.
for the sake of argument, that the monarch has the very same views and vision as the leader. This once more leads to another present issue, the succession and the monarch's kids. As we know, the succession of a monarchy is hereditary. The monarch's eldest son or daughter will be designated as the heir and rule over the nation after the death of their parents. And the issue with this is, how do we know that the heir will also fervently believe in fascism? You could educate them in the fascist way, but that still does not guarantee.
Who says? But yeah, but the fascist leader isn't also eternal as well. So the fascist leader is going to die too. So it's like, okay, let's say you wipe out the royal family because you're big Mr. Fascist. How are you going to make sure? Like, how are you going to have a succession? Too, right? You need something to fall back upon. So you can't. And usually, it's monarchy is the best system to kind of have that continuity of government type.
I mean, it didn't work too well for the Spanish fascists. Kind of turned into a
no, it
liberal
didn't.
democracy.
No, and that's true. But I mean, like, no, I mean, but that still was like the intention. That's because the Spanish monarch was like raised in France, wasn't he? Under all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he was a bit
like.
Yeah, he was kind of yeah. The Spanish monarchs, yeah, they were kind of lame.
It's like, why would you think to raise your heir apparent in like the heart of like democratic socialism that is France?
Yeah, you should have had like a little like a Franco costume. You should have palled around with Franco and had a cape. His ridiculous fur trim cape. Like, I just love how Franco's wearing like a fur trim cape in the middle of the Mediterranean. I was like, how are you not sweating constantly? That get up.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like, so you're saying like if you raise the monarch as fascist, he's gonna be extremely well dressed.
That they will genuinely believe in fascism from the heart when they are older. So, when the monarch dies and the heir takes over, if the heir is not as fond of fascism, indifferent, or opposed to it, then we are already back.
And again, what is fascism in this definition? It's like, oh, if he doesn't have fascism in his heart, but what is fascism in the heart? Like, I don't like.
It's
like
a great sense of fashion. Fascism.
Yeah, again, like
I could argue that if you're well dressed, you know, communists argue that being well dressed, well groomed, in good shape, caring about your appearance, having a clean room is all fascism. This is literally no different than fascism. This is the monarchist equivalent of fascism.
Well, it's because rights believe in standards, and that includes how you present yourself. And if you believe that you're correct, you don't want to look like a weirdo degenerate because you are the ideas you represent, obviously, right? So like, I'm not gonna like.
I was told by reliable sources that cat boys in the cat boy feel that having standards is gay and having sex with women is gay, and you know.
Well, I can. You know what? I have proof that I'm not.
You're
yes,
married.
I was gonna say, like, I have proof that I'm not gay. Like, I wish, like,
Fucking
Why
homo.
can't? Why can't?
I do a
Well,
podcast with a homo who's had sex with women. You kiss girls. Faggot.
I know. It's just like Fuentes is so infuriating. I hate like okay, I
We'll do
shouldn't
an
hate him.
episode
Lord
dedicated
have
to
mercy.
Fuentes. We'll do an episode eventually dedicated to Fuentes and the creepy
He's
cult
just
of the right.
like he's such a. I want to swear when I think about him because he's such a.
Fucking
I don't
weirdo.
like him very much. But no, because like okay, there was a time even like a year or two ago, right, where I listened to some of the stuff he said like in clips. I'd be like, yeah, I agree. Like he's making good points.
He used to.
And then
Then he said something really stupid.
yeah, he attacked like some guy for like having a daughter, and
Yeah,
it's
he's
like, and
gay.
I'm not.
That's what a homosexual
Oh,
does.
you gonna you.
That's a gay
Which is
guy
the
thing.
most, which is the gayest thing you can stink and say, because it's like, like who wants to have only sons?
Gay
Gay
men.
couples, yeah,
Gay.
that's what gay,
Fags.
yeah.
Fags. That's
Oh,
the answer to your
it's like
question. He's gay.
I'd have more respect for him if he just said, "Oh yeah, no, like I'm basically like Milo Yiannopoulos too, where I'm a gay with like no real moral standards,
Well,
but
no,
I
see,
like fat aesthetics or
Milo
something."
is better at political maneuvering than he is.
Which
No,
is stinking saying a lot considering what like a degenerate like liability Milo
well,
is. I mean,
Milo's a snake. No one pretends he's anything else. Which, I tried reaching out to Milo to get him on this podcast just to tell him,
like
you know,
like I hypocrite. Just it's an aside,
yeah,
but kind of relevant. Like I like a lot of. I was I was listening to a lot of I hypocrite during like the Christmas break. I do enjoy his material, right? And he was a big Fuentes supporter, right? And then Nick went against the whole wife jack thing, which I thought was like a stupid. I didn't care, right? Just like a meme, whatever. But they were like making rape pornography and do just the worst. Like nigga, you're supposed to be a Christian, right?
yeah.
And like
Well,
I
like
ain't no fan of Catholics,
but
but like
meet every so-called trad cat, the old secret degenerate homosexual men.
but the thing is like I don't it's like I don't okay, even if you're a flipping thinking degenerate, okay, hide it. Like you know that if you're a Catholic, you shouldn't be
Well,
supporting like
well, look, those two
I
episodes that I don't have copies of, which are
uh,
with one of my friends who named by the name of Basil, who's one of the few people on the far right who actually has my real phone number, who we gossip about everyone on the far right with about, and then Basil's like, yeah, I'm a degenerate, so that's the difference. He's like, yeah, I'm an open degenerate, and the reason I support the right is because I generally don't want society to collapse, because then you can't do degenerate things. No fun
like
to be had in collapse society.
like I can understand, right? Someone who suffers from certain predilections, right? And then they're like, well, you know what? I acknowledge that I'm a piece of trash. I don't want society to be like me. Therefore, I will join a group that will like persecute me and probably kill me. Like I just that's almost like
Go,
martyr. That's almost like you're making a sacrifice for the continuity. I kind of get that.
go full Mishima. Be a gay homosexual Japanese ultranationalist.
Was he gay though? I don't think he was actually gay.
He was. Confession of the
Uh,
Mask. He admits to being fat. Flaming homo.
yeah, I mean, at least he had the dignity to kill himself. Yeah. So,
Well, no,
anyways, but yeah.
in it.
Back to square one. Just because dear old daddy was a fascist fanatic, it does not guarantee that his kid will follow in his footsteps as well, and now the fascist leader has to deal with the new monarch. In the end, I would not say that monarchism and fascism make for compatible roommates, even if it appears so on the surface. It can only work if the monarch also believes in fascism and is just as big of a fanatic as the leader, which is again extremely rare, perhaps even impossible. This entire partnership depends on the monarch, and while I do not deny that in the short run it may work out,
No,
in the long run,
pause.
this
Pause. It also depends on like what if the fascist leader dies first and has his hand-picked successor? What if his successor isn't 100% as fascist as the fascist leader before him?
You mean
Like things change.
you mean like in Spain, where the king immediately created a liberal democracy after Franco gave him power?
No, I'm saying like a hypothetical situation where say like there was a king and no, like let's say the oh I don't know. It's like it's not going to stay constant. And you're okay now. You sound good now. You're okay now. You sound good now. Just seems like there's a hiccup.
There's a thunderstorm going on. Weird. We keep having thunderstorms.
I
will
see.
undoubtedly fall apart sooner or later. which is why I believe fascism is in its purest form when their ideology revolves around republicanism, because keeping the royal family around in any case will lead to drawbacks that far outweigh the benefits. If there is no royal family in the first place, all those issues I previously mentioned would not exist at all, and the transition towards fascism and solidifying their rule will be much more simple and smooth for fascists. The simple truth is, no matter how one tries to get around these issues, monarchism and fascism just aren't fully compatible systems that can coexist in peace and harmony for 1,000 years, because in the end, there will only be two aftermaths. Either the fascists completely take over and oust the royals, or the royals manage to take back their country from the fascists. There cannot be a middle option in the long run.
Okay, so I've got two questions. Who's to say a fascist republic, is going to stay fascism, right? Because there is a tendency for things to liberalize over time, right? As we see, like there's no guarantee. Like it just like what are you trying to accomplish in fascism? Like what's the point, right? I guess what's the telos of it?
The telos of fascism is to be well dressed. I know I keep making that joke, but
I don't
I
know.
generally think
like-
that's what people are generally thinking. The
Because
point of fascism is now apparently just to be extremely well dressed at all times.
if you have a fascist republic, right? Then eventually the law is going to supersede whoever's like the leader of your fascist republic.
Republicanism in general. The basis of that's just republicanism in general is an exclusive ideology. It's always been an exclusivist ideology. It's always been an aristocratic ideology. Republicanism is not
Yeah.
universal. It's not a universalist ideology. There's certain people who always in purely Republican systems of government. There's certain people who can't vote, who can't hold certain offices. It's not a very, liberal democracy and parliamentarianism are much more likely to be enemies of monarchism. Also, I just think Levada is very intellectually dishonest when he says, and really has this weird thing I think every monarchist suffers from. It's like, we're not fascists. Like, of course we're not fascists. That's little. Who are you trying to convince of that? Yourself? You're not a fascist? Cool, I'm not a fascist. My nation's not a fascist. So is monarch a fascist?
I mean, like when people like I don't know, because I used to play on like liberal like apps or whatever, and they go like, "Oh, you're a fascist." I'm like, no, I'm not a fascist. I'm not a fascist because fascism's too left wing. Fascism's too democratic for me. I'm like a monarchist in the Evolian sense, where you have the like where the monarch serves as what's the term who is the leader of
I don't know who the leader of is. That could be a 900 different things.
who is the religion the Pontifex Maximus? I believe like the monarch is Pontifex Maximus. He is literally like the bridge between the divine and the secular rule. Like I'm as ultra like again, fascism is too secular and too liberal and too human rightsy and all these things for me.
The issue is the Legion wasn't also. Levado keeps insisting the Legion throughout the entire video is fascist, but they're not. They never called themselves fascist. They were monarchists. It was a monarchist, reactionary monarchist group.
So that's like saying the Black Hundreds in Russia were like a fascist group.
Some people accuse them of being proto-fascists,
which I mean, and
retarded. It's literally a liberal argument.
And my argument was that the Tsar should have like aligned with them and used them, to his ends. But...
Well, they were a bit.
I mean, it depends.
I really can't find weirdly. There's not a single one of those shit. They don't have much translated into English. I found one pamphlet.
It's hard to get.
It's hard to get
stuff from that time, but anyways, I don't know. Like I'm not like I don't know. I don't want to be uppity. I just I don't feel like all the critiques he's made about fascism and its relation to monarchy. You can make the same critique about liberal democracy. It's like, what does he want? Does he want an absolute monarch? I mean, probably not. He wants a liberal monarchy, which means he essentially wants republicanism with a crown. That's kind of what he's advocating for. Essentially, he wants a figurehead monarch and parliamentarianism. So, I mean, I guess God bless him in that or whatever, but that's not where we're coming from. And for that reason, his views and his ideology is
that's
self-contradictory, basically.
Well, that's really the main issue.
Because his goal isn't to sustain the monarch. or to sustain
Well,
monarchism as an ideology.
well, indeed it is. He is a monarchist, but the whole thing is the problem with semi-constitutionalism is one will always win out on the other, and like Levator has all these views like, why does calling someone a like, so if you're afraid of someone calling you a fascist, look, there's if you ever dox me, there's at least 7 pictures of me, hundreds of pictures of me in Nazi uniforms, Nazi rallies, well, white nationalist rallies, but like I
Whatever.
don't give a
Why would I
fuck
want to dox you?
okay, I don't give a fuck if you find those. I don't care. I don't care that
I
I
just have
did
no
that.
interest.
I don't
Yeah.
care that I did that, and I don't give a shit if people know I'm an open racialist. It doesn't bother me. I used to care what people like that think, and I realized all those people are god awful human beings. I've never had a white nationalist steal money from me. I've never had a white nationalist not pay me back. White nationalists are very nice. Racialists are very nice people. Very fine people. Trump was wrong when he said there's very fine people on both sides. No, there was only very fine people on one side. There was
Yeah.
very fine people on the racialist side. There was never very fine people on the leftist side. All leftists are scum. But all being said is people are obsessed with
Like,
this idea that monarchists, we're not fascists, we're different than fascists. Like, of course we're different than fascists, but you're arguing with people who think there's no difference between libertarianism, national socialism, liberal democracy, a 90s liberals like Trump. Freedom of speech is fascism. To a communist leftist, everything that isn't leftism is fascism. So it's kind of irrelevant
yeah.
whether or not you call something fascist or not fascist, because they don't have a
Like,
coherent. That's not even his definition of fascism is stupid. It can apply to liberal democracy. It can apply to Stalinism. It can apply to
he,
uh,
he's attacking fascism from the left, which as a monarchist is kind of
dumb
a
thing to do.
stupid position to put. Yeah, because all the critiques you make about fascists, you can make about like monarchs as well. Like when I go in for like fascism, right? When I attack fascism, I do it from the right, and I do that in the sense that like fascism is essentially a form of bastardized, secularized monarchy, right? But I mean, I do acknowledge that in certain contexts, fascism does kind of like, again, I see it more as political technology. It's something to use. It's like in case of fire, break glass. Sort of in case of like systemic disaster, break, get a bit of fascism here. But it's not. It's not like it's not coherent
what do you
in and of
think?
itself.
What do you think the German right was using Hitler as? You think we were going to keep that guy around? No. Everyone who tried to kill
No.
him was a monarchist. It's like the people who tried to kill him. There was a few liberal and communists, but the people who got the closest were all monarchists. We're like, if the war would have ended, Hitler would have been, well, he would have been harder, but he would have most likely met his end by a car bomb of some monarchists. So, probably not though. Actually, I highly doubt
I
that.
don't know. Again, speculating one way or the other
It's
isn't like,
pointless.
and like and they want to kill Hitler not because they want to reestablish. Even if they were monarchists, that wasn't really their goal for trying to assassinate him. It was because they wanted to like they were like, okay, well, you know what?
You're
We can't
incompetent.
negotiate with the Western powers or the Soviet Union while Hitler's alive. So if we kill off Hitler, then maybe we can kind of pull
Yeah,
back from this war that's going to like
yeah,
destroy the
yeah.
nation.
You won't get to negotiate with the Judaic Bolshevik allies. They had no desire to negotiate. Never.
I
Hitler.
mean, a lot of the generals did, but at that point, because the writing was on the wall, they knew it was unsustainable. But
Yeah, not with that attitude. It's not. Even in 1933,
well,
I would have been like, in 1933, I would have been like, we can still win this.
well.
I'm look.
Anyways,
Hitler is like I'm like Hitler. I'm an eternal something. You need to be an eternal optimist.
be a positive, Polly.
Yeah, Hitler even towards the end is like, he's probably saying in the box like, can we still win this? Yes. Hitler should have walked out with. He should
Yeah.
not shot himself and should have walked out with rifle like, oh, we got this.
Mm.
We got this. That was his issue. He would have walked out with a rifle, men would have rallied behind him, and somehow, miraculously, he would have pushed the Allies all the way back to Normandy, out in the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all like whatever. What can you
But the
do?
point
I
is,
don't
like,
know.
people
Like
label
I
people
see.
shut.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm talking. You wait. But the point I'm making is like Levator's just intellectually dishonest on multiple levels in that entire video. The entire video is just, well, this is what fascism is. No, it's not. No fascist would accept that definition even remotely. Like this obsession with like people like on the right to go, this is what fascism is. Hitler was a pagan. Hitler had one testicle. The Nazis were actually occultists. The fascists were secretly Freemasons or something. It's like no, 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 none of that's true. No, none
It's
of
like
it's
even if it was, I wouldn't care. I
yeah.
mean, I would care, but like, look, when you saw what the stinking Soviet Union was doing and what they were like no, no, it's almost like any
We
evil
we
was
read
justified in
watch
fighting
a
that.
documentary called Weimar Before the Fall. There was child
Yeah,
prostitutes
yeah,
on
yeah,
every street.
like
There was like
e-
where do you think shit play comes from? That comes from Weimar Germany. Every nasty thing you can think of in the modern world comes from the Weimar Republic. Berlin was the
it's like
capital of heathenism in the
yeah,
20th century. It was basically the Las Vegas before Las Vegas. Well, Las Vegas still existed, but it was the Las Vegas before
sure.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, like the point is right. Like even if every bad and again, like who knows really what Hitler was like? He's been lionized, he's been like demonized.
He
Like
w-
who's thinking this?
he
At the
was
end
an
of the day, I
insensitive
don't
man.
care because I objectively know that like what the Soviet Union was pushing internally, the things it was doing to its own people under Stalin, and the things and the designs it had for Europe as a whole, including Germany, and then what Germany itself was becoming because of both communist agitation and like just horrible moral degeneracy. It's like almost any force is worth like stemming those tides, right? And like again, I can't fault
Well,
like the Germans for wanting something to like correct that because it was completely foreign to them too as well. Like it was all the degeneracy was imposed from like foreign sources anyways because the Germans are traditionally a very conservative people. They didn't want that,
well,
but
yeah, I mean, the thing is though,
so
it's like the Levator's attacks on fascism are retarded anyways because none of the Iron Guard weren't fascists. I'll repeatedly say it, but they weren't. They were monarchists. They were reactionary monarchists. Leon de Grelle was who was in Belgium was a reactionary Catholic. Franco, the majority of the French, sorry, the Spanish right were reactionary monarchists. The Phalangists were part of it, but they were sidelined later on because no one liked them. They just took the uniform and yeah, but the issue really is that he's like legionarism. It's like I don't think you even know what the fuck legionarism is, Levator. I generally don't think you have a single understanding of what Codreanu believes. I don't even think you've read For My Legionnaires a single page of it, because Codreanu even doesn't he ever get into fascism or calling himself that. He specifically outlines actually in the beginning of it's not even that far into the book. I think it's only like 30 or 40 pages in where he outlines what he actually believes in.
yeah, so I don't know, like yeah, I don't
It's
know. He cripples himself with what he's trying to do. I
well,
think
I
he's
mean,
trying to.
libertarians crippled do the same thing. They'll make a lot of good points about government overreach, and then the solution is to set the house on fire.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's usually how it is.
It's
These ideas are contradictory. So
I mean, he's not the first, but like Levator's issue, even though he's the most prominent monarchist on YouTube, uh, well, second actually, second that would be the universe. Boone is actually guys, but it's not important. I don't really care about subscribers. I don't care about being popular. That's why I believe in what I believe in. Because I know my ideas aren't popular, but I've never stalked popularity.
right. I mean, yeah, it's for truth, not for popularity. Even though I
Like
would mind a bit more, but
if I wanted to be popular, I just adopt the manosphere grift, which is the easiest thing in the world. You know, white women are trash. I was like, do you know you're a bunch of degenerate, porn sick freaks?
yeah,
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 this
it's annoying.
Yes, yes, people. I generally am surrounded on all sides on the right by idiots. Uh, Sadly, that's the truth. I really, really I'm tired of people's like, we're not the whole we're not fascists, we're not Nazis. Like, yeah, of course we're not Nazis. We don't like Nazis. Don't like libertarians. Like, as a monarchist, I would if it would be up to me, and if you said you were a libertarian, you would be cut off from government services, and you'd be on a list of people the every single law enforcement agency would not help. You wouldn't have to pay taxes, but you also couldn't leave your house because you're a libertarian weirdo. And the same thing with communists. Like people like, you know, it's like liberals are actually aligning themselves with fascists. Like, no, they're not. Liberals would piss themselves if an actual fascist was about to seize the presidency, because you can't bribe a fascist, you can't bribe a national socialist, and you can't bribe a monarch. They love democracy. You get people. The enemy of monarchism is not fascism or Nazism. In the grand scheme of things, outside of some European countries, fascism and Nazism are irrelevant. Like,
I
electoral.
mean, as a political movement, I mean, fascism really has been maybe at most like the '60s, I guess, with like certain kind of things in Italy.
But
Yeah, no, it's
true,
no
true,
one's
true
yeah.
national socialism. I mean, yeah, there's influences on the American right in some countries, but unless you're in Germany, true national socialism is kind of an irrelevant ideology. Dirt Weg has five, which is the actual successor, the only real, not the AF, the alternative for Deutschland, the actual Dirt Weg, which has the little 3 symbol, stupid symbol, but it's a pretty neat symbol. But the point is,
And
like,
if they had any chance of getting power, they'd be made illegal
they,
anyways.
yeah, they
So
would be getting the AfD treatment. Like, that's the thing. If they have
yeah,
500 members in a country of, I think, 50 million people, that's irrelevant.
yeah. So again, I mean, the whole idea is just to put your stuff out there, and
Well, no, people,
maybe in
when you dilute your ideology so much and you keep compromise, like, well, fascism is when X, Y, and Z is like,
well, yeah.
no,
Do you want power? Do you want to be right? That's the question. And if
yeah,
you want to be right, then well, then you basically have to wait on the world to eventually kind of come to conclusions you have.
no,
So that's what it's going to take, because
what you gotta do
yeah,
to gain political
and it
power in a modern liberal democracy is to completely destroy all of your beliefs and compromise on everything. And you might get
yeah,
something what you want in liberal democracy. Or you're going to have to
yeah,
march on Rome, which not like literal Rome it's a metaphor. Because people are stupid and I need to explain metaphors. I've surprisingly had to do that to people. Zoomers are retarded. Gen Z are generally fucking retarded. They all they should be enslaved. I fully support enslaving Gen Z because they're that mentally slow.
Anyways, I think I should probably call it. Because we've been going for what, 2.5 hours. That's not bad.
Yeah, see, you made that take longer than two. Blame you. I had a whole other second segment that we were
Hey,
supposed to.
well, good. Well, that can be for next time. It's good.
But
We're in no rush, like to run
but
through everything. So
but you know, nation. Screw you for the one time we stay on subject. 10 minutes.
I mean, I like it's good either way. I mean, if the topic conversation is interesting, I kind of don't care if it diverges elsewhere, as long as it all kind of
Well,
is
I'll
interesting.
see everyone next Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Toodaloo.
wait, today's Sunday.
Whatever. We'll work it out. Something will be worked out.